Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for watching. Tonight, yet another attempt at legislation to prevent the use of replacement workers during a strike. Plus, a push to improve the Little River Channel. A discussion is happening this hour. Residents are complaining about too much noise from trains in South Walkerville. City officials unpacked the issue this afternoon. And a new report points to some of the issues gig workers are facing, including inadequate transit infrastructure. A renewed push to make it illegal for companies to use non-unionized workers during a strike. This comes as Windsor Salt employees continue to picket. MPP Lisa Gretzky, alongside her NDP colleagues, proposed the legislation at Queen's Park today. Dale Molnar brings us the story.
These workers behind me and every worker across Ontario need and deserve anti-scab labor legislation.
MPP Lisa Gretzky was joined by other NDP MPPs and workers from Windsor Salt in reintroducing anti-replacement worker legislation. The NDP have been trying every year for 16 years to make it illegal for companies to bring in replacement workers during a strike. Gretzky points to the recent strike at Highbury Canco, where replacement workers were brought in, as a recent example, making it more urgent.
It will shorten labor disputes, reduce safety risks at workplaces, and make the bargaining process fair for everyone involved.
That the use of replacement workers prolongs disputes and creates an environment of confrontation.
The NDP brought in anti-replacement worker legislation in 1992 when they were in power, but the Mike Harris government repealed it shortly after taking power in 1995. A labor studies professor says the legislation was beneficial.
But in that short 3-year period, we saw the number of strikes declined. We saw the incidences of picket line violence decline. And we actually saw increased capital investment in the province of Ontario.
Striking workers at Windsor Salt want to see the legislation passed.
Because right now we have people inside doing our jobs, management and whatnot doing our jobs at this point.
I definitely think it's necessary. It's nice some of the politicians are stepping up, bringing it to the House, because we need something. We need fair negotiations.
Savage doubts the Doug Ford government will pass the legislation. He says the NDP just want to pressure him to prove he's on the side of working people. Gretzky did just that in the legislature.
No more rhetoric. Look right at those workers and tell them yes or no.
Labor Minister Monty McNaughton praised the workers at Windsor Salt but would not commit to the legislation.
We want a deal at the table.
The federal Liberals and NDP will be introducing anti-replacement worker legislation this year, but it will only cover federal workers and workers who work in federally regulated workplaces as well as crown corporations. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
The city is looking to improve the Little River Channel in East Windsor. That waterway is a section that zigzags from the Via Rail tracks to Lozon Road. The goal is to improve the feel for residents while looking at its ecological functions. The CBC's TJ Deer joins us live now from a public meeting at the WFCU Centre. TJ, what is the city planning to do at this point?
Well, Kat, there have been people walking in and out of this room here at the WFCU Center for the last few hours just to see what the city is thinking about doing. Now, there are 3 people here that are associated with the project, one of whom is Ward 7 Councillor Angelo Marignani. Now, all 3 of the people associated with the project have been chatting with visitors who've been coming in and out all day just to see so they can see what the city has in mind. Now, the city has laid out 6 potential options on what to do, ranging from doing nothing all the way to a full redesign of the channel. I asked some residents about who lived right by the Little River Channel, and none of them knew anything about what the city had in mind. One of them did mention, though, that the amount of garbage littered across the walkways right by the channel is her big priority. I also spoke with another woman who came here earlier today. She said that she's happy the city's looking at taking action.
Well, I think that it's great that they're looking at it, because I've been walking along the Little River area and seeing all the debris in there. It doesn't flow. So if anything can be done to make sure that we have a good flowing channel, that's super.
TJ, what's the city saying about the work that could be done along the waterway?
Well, one of the people here associated with the project is a city engineer who also happens to be the drainage superintendent. He said the city has also heard nothing from residents, and that's why they're setting up this public session.
The channel will continue to be maintained. It's a municipal drain. It's maintained under the Drainage Act, so we'll continue to maintain it. It is deteriorating in some spots for erosion, and we would just do some spot repairs. But ultimately, we'd like to see a more holistic approach to, creating a better environment there.
And that holistic approach is being presented to residents here in the form of 5 options. Now, members of the public are also able to ask questions and provide comments after tonight's meeting. All they have to do is fill out this comment sheet, which is available here at the meeting and at the city's website. Residents are able to do that until April the 12th. Kat?
Thanks for this, TJ. That's CBC's TJ Deer live from the WFCU Center tonight. And turning now to another issue being discussed by city officials this afternoon, train whistle complaints. Some neighbors in South Walkerville say the noise has become excessive, especially overnight, and they want it to stop. The city's Transportation Standing Committee discussed next steps.
I'd like to direct administration to continue discussions with Transport Canada, the Transportation Minister, Omar Alghabra, as well as MP Eric Kazmierczak and the federal government to just continue to look into grant funding that's available to fund warning system upgrades to the affected crossings, as well maybe just get some federal funding, as well as fund safety measures in and around these crossings.
That motion passed unanimously, and it's all in relation to the Essex Terminal Railway Company lines east of Howard and west of Walker. Trains have to blow their horns whenever they move through crossings that don't have guard arms. According to a report that went to the Standing Committee, upgrading the crossings would cost about $3 million each. ETR says because of demand, they've been busier in the last several months, which means more frequency of trains. Now, council has already asked administration to engage with the company to reduce noise, but some of those suggestions were rejected, with the company indicating that their horn volumes are already as close as possible to the minimum levels required federally. One neighbor wants more action, saying it's affecting his sleep and overall well-being.
Since Essex Terminal is saying that it's a safety issue, well, all that is being asked is that they address the safety issue, number one, because arms should be there. Number two, it's a health issue. It's become a very serious health issue that's affecting myself and my son. So we want it addressed, that's all.
Instead of blowhorns, he's calling for other alternatives to be considered. CBC has reached out to Essex Terminal Rails for comment, but has not yet heard back. Transport Canada tells CBC it is aware of the situation and has communicated the concerns with ETR. Mackenzie's motion has also asked for more information on the decibel levels of the train whistles. A new report is pointing to some of the challenges gig workers are facing, like inadequate transit and bike infrastructure. That's according to a Workforce Windsor Essex analysis. They describe gig workers as jobs with short-term tasks and no guarantee for steady employment. Jobs like Uber Eats drivers, landscapers, people in finance, and even graphic designers.
The majority of people that we consulted with do own a car, but they would often follow up by saying, this is a good thing because transit infrastructure is not adequate if I were to do gig work solely taking public transit. Those who took public transit or active transit, such as cycling, found that infrastructure was not usually adequate when it came to being able to take all jobs that they may want to accomplish.
The report points to the city's transit master plan and the hope that it will address some of these concerns. Feelings of anxiety and income insecurity also came up among those consulted for the report. Workforce Windsor Essex estimates there are more than 20,000 people in our region who are part of the gig economy. And half of local gig workers surveyed say that they do that part-time in addition to a separate permanent full-time job. To national news now. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the rest of the Liberal caucus are now out selling the new federal budget. It was delivered yesterday and includes billions in new spending for programs ranging from dental care to green tech. But it also brings a bigger deficit, and it's getting mixed reviews from the opposition. CBC's Kate McKenna has more.
I think people need to understand that this is a time where Canadians need that extra support.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is selling his budget to Canadians, hoping they'll buy in.
We also know that health care and dental care remain top of mind for Canadians. That's why we're delivering that.
The NDP take credit for that dental spending, saying they forced the government's hand.
We didn't take no for an answer when Liberals voted against it twice. We got it done for people.
The Conservatives doubled down on their criticism of the budget, saying it won't stop violent crime, highlighting the deaths of Canadian police officers recently killed on duty and public transit attacks.
A wave of crime and chaos, drugs and disorder that are the obvious consequences of the policies of Justin Trudeau and the NDP.
Leader Pierre Poilievre also says there's nothing in the budget for new housing and not enough to fight inflation, but stops short of opposing new tax credits promoting clean tech.
We're going to study what's in the budget and we'll come up with our own election platform.
But the leader of the Bloc Québécois says those tax credits could go to oil and gas companies, something that his party opposes.
The clean tech money in this budget is basically $17 billion, which are under the form of credit tax offered to oil and gas companies to invest in some technologies that will not be helpful for the environment.
Despite the criticism from the Conservatives in the Bloc Québécois, the NDP have said that they will support this budget. That means it is expected to pass, and Canadians will not be plunged into an election in the near future. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
And speaking of your wallets, Dollarama released its quarterly earnings today and roundly beat expectations. The discount retailer says cash-strapped Canadians are looking for bargains as inflation continues to bite into buying power. CBC's Sophia Harris takes a look at the chain's success and what might lie ahead.
I just got these bamboo organizers.
They're so dainty and cute. The patterns and colors were absolutely adorable.
Savvy shoppers show off their finds at Dollarama.
And they're only $1.50.
Cheap is the new chic, as cash-strapped Canadians struggle with inflation and turn to the country's biggest dollar store for bargains.
It's so cheap and affordable. Anywhere else, the chips in the city are like $6. Here, they're like $2.
Tough times are forcing some retailers to close up shop in Canada, but Dollarama is doing great, reporting a 20% increase in sales and a profit of $260 million for the last quarter. And the retailer has massive expansion plans to grow from 1,400 to 2,000 stores.
There's no perishables. There's no dairy.
This expert says the company is able to keep prices low by selling simple products, which require little overhead.
It certainly minimizes the amount of staff that they require. And staff is a big factor in retail costs these days, especially with escalating minimum wages.
But Dollarama has also been hit by inflation. Last year, its highest price point rose to $5. Any higher, and some customers might be turned off.
I think the maximum price for me is $5. I am a student and the cost here in Vancouver is very high, right?
There's another hurdle. Dollar-themed rivals from the US and Asia have been expanding their presence in Canada. Even the new Zellers is trying to get in on the action.
One of the things they have to watch out for is competition. And as this sector grows, more people will enter this sector. More retailers will go for it as well.
What do you think of the prices?
You can't beat them. $1 and $2, so it's unbelievable.
So, good times for Dollarama, but maybe too good if the competition keeps moving in. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Vancouver.
A Canadian swimming sensation has set a new world record. 16-year-old Summer McIntosh electrified the crowd yesterday at a national swim competition in Toronto.
McIntosh is the newest world record holder in the women's 400 freestyle.
I think the reason I'm showing so much emotion is over the past few years I've just put in my life and so has my family, and to become the best that I can be at the sport that I love, and it just blows my mind.
McIntosh powered through the 400-meter freestyle, finishing in under 4 minutes to set a new world record, her first. And she already holds many Canadian titles, following in the footsteps of her mother, who swam in the 1984 Olympics. McIntosh is competing all week, along with 600 of Canada's top swimmers, including Olympic champion Maggie McNeil, who races on Wednesday. Winners this week will represent Canada at the upcoming Pan American Games in Chile in October. A live look outside there. A beautiful evening that is turning out to be a very different look than what we had this afternoon when we had that wet mix of precipitation earlier on. And tomorrow, another nice clear day it looks like. We'll have your weather forecast right after the break. Stay with us. Time now for a look at our weather forecast. For that, let's head straight to the CBC's Victor Paulo.
Some exciting weather when it comes to Windsor and the look ahead for the 3 and 7 day. We're going to be having some temperatures as warm as 14 degrees. But before we get there, we had a bit of a weather advisory. We also had some gusty wind, 70-kilometer-per-hour gusts were working its way through Windsor. And then once all that's said and done, we got a chilly night ahead. Now looking at the radar to see exactly what we can expect and where. Looking over for tomorrow morning to start the day, it's going to be quite the clear skies. Clear skies also with no clouds means there's no insulation to keep that heat. So that chilly night from last night would translate to a bit of a chilly start to start the day for tomorrow. Now, a bit of a fast forward to see what we're going to be looking ahead to when it comes to Friday. We're going to draw your attention to right here in Colorado, in the state of Denver. As you do see here, what happens is in Toronto, all the way down to Windsor, you'll be experiencing when it comes to your commute to work or wherever you have to go Friday morning will be a mix of snow, wet, heavy flurries, as well as rain, as you do see all three here. Now, the beautiful thing about spring is if you really don't like the weather, stick around for 5 minutes. It'll definitely change. Now, taking a look at what you can expect for the rest of the day on Friday, things will start to clear up when it comes to your commute home on Fridays. We get to gear up towards the weekend. So that's something you can look forward to. Now, taking a look at what you can expect for tomorrow mornings when your little ones are getting ready for school, it's going to feel a lot closer to -11, -6 with a mix of sun and cloud. And taking a look at our 3 and 7 day forecast, so I was looking to make some weekend plans, you do see that it's going to be quite the seasonal temperatures. 14 degrees on Friday, a bit above 10 degrees on Saturday. And taking a look at what's in store for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 17 degrees on Monday, 12 degrees on Tuesday, and a 13-degree Wednesday. Looks like things are heating up over in Windsor. Temperature getting a lot warmer as you get later on into the spring. But it looks like Windsor's getting ready for summertime quite a bit early. Might find myself there for Easter weekend. Now, if you have to be making plans when it comes to Friday and Saturday, make sure you're planning for all that precipitation coming through. If you're making plans when it comes to the start of the week, you just make sure you're all set for that warm weather. Hope you enjoy. Back to you.
Love seeing all those double digits. When we come back, we're going to tell you about Canada's first ever large-scale production with an all-black ensemble. Stay with us. In more national news, protesters are demonstrating against the closure of the Roxham Road border crossing in Quebec. They staged a rally outside the constituency office of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Montreal today.
Ouvrez les frontières! Ouvrez les frontières! Ouvrez les frontières! Ouvrez les frontières!
A group called Solidarity Across Borders organized the rally. Protesters also condemned the short advance warning given about the closure, even though the decision had been made a year ago. The irregular crossing was closed on Saturday with just 8 hours' notice. The organizers of the rally say closing Roxham Road puts migrants in more danger because they will now take riskier routes into Canada. Internationally, King Charles is in Germany today, and it marks his first overseas state visit as monarch. The visit is being seen as an effort to mend fences between Britain and the EU after Brexit. CBC's Abby Kugadasan has this report from the Brandenburg Gate.
The king receiving a 21-gun salute upon his arrival here at the airport in Berlin. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier and the First Lady Elke Budenbender arrived first here at Brandenburg Gate, followed by the royal couple. And as their motorcade passed by, the crowds cheered and waved at both King Charles and the Queen Consort Camilla. It is the king's first state visit as sovereign, and another first here, the German government ensuring that the welcome ceremony, along with full military honors, took place here at Brandenburg Gate, which they've never done for any other foreign head of state, to ensure that the people here in the city of Berlin had the opportunity to catch a glimpse of the royal couple and as well as the ceremony. There were a large crowd. Some of them were from Berlin, some from other parts of the country.
I think this is quite a momentous occasion, so I'd like to be a part of it. My mom and I are big like royal family buffs. We went to Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's. We attended outside. I'm acting like we were invited guests, but there's a fascination.
This trip is very much about mending fractured ties following Brexit. Buckingham Palace says the visit marks our shared history, culture, and values. Tomorrow, the king will meet with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz before giving a speech in front of MPs at the German Parliament, becoming the first British monarch to do so. And then on Friday, he'll take a train to Hamburg before he wraps up his 3-day visit to Germany. Abby Kwaddasan, CBC News, Berlin.
A new opera titled Of the Sea is Canada's first ever large-scale production with an all-black ensemble, both on the stage and behind the scenes. It's a mythical story of African slaves who are thrown overboard during the Middle Passage and now live under the sea. The opera is being hailed as vital to expanding representation in the community. CBC's Eli Glasner has the story.
There's change coming to the opera world, and there's a great example of it happening right here in Toronto at the premiere of the Sea. This is a new opera featuring an all-black cast of performers. The story is of slaves being shipped across the sea, pushed overboard, and then creating their own mythical kingdom underwater. The playwright, who is a fan of the art form, said she wanted to see her own stories represented on stage.
Honestly, I was looking at the storytelling, and that was what I loved about it. And I always knew that there was space for Black bodies on the stage. And the few times that I did see them, it was fantastic. And I knew there was space for more.
The Métis composer says far too long the opera world has ignored other cultures and other stories. And he also is adamant that that needs to change.
It's a 400-year-old art form that has lacked our stories and lacked diverse stories, lacked stories that are told from perspectives of people who've walked from those communities. And so I think it's really about, for me, what's really important is telling an epic story like this and saying that it has the same weight as our Carmens and our Traviatas.
But what's interesting is that Of the Sea is only one of a new explosion of Black stories on opera stages across Canada and around the world. And the lead performer in this production says that wasn't always the case.
This has been overlooked in traditional standard repertoire, whether it's Barber of Seville, whether it's a Tosca, whether it's a Verdi opera, where you have performers of color who are just as talented and just as warranted as others, but are not given the opportunity. But now, I don't know if you noticed, if you look across the globe, it's now changing.
But many of the performers we talked to say that is now starting to change. They've gone from fighting for parts to now being in demand as their stories and their sound take center stage. Eli Glaster, CBC News, Toronto.
Before we go, cleaning up the world's oceans could be getting a little easier. A South African company has developed a remote-controlled cleaner based on a Disney robot.
It literally sweeps around the water. You can go and do your job, come back, and it should be full, and you empty it, and then you put it back in.
It's supposed to gobble up garbage, especially plastic. The inventor says the waste shark can inhale thousands of bottles a day. He calls it a cross between a shark and a vacuum cleaner and says it was inspired by the Disney robot WALL-E that cleans up the world's trash. The machine holds 500 kilograms of debris and can travel 5 kilometers, and it costs about $20,000. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For more, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. And of course, you can always check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.